I never understood how quietly darkness enters a life. Not with storms, not with screams, but with curiosity. People think danger announces itself. But the truth is, evil prefers to whisper. My name is Naira, and before you judge who I became, you need to know who I once was. I was a seeker, a quiet girl who asked too many questions, who read too many books, who felt too deeply. I thought sensitivity was my gift, but I didn't know sensitivity is also a doorway. When I was 19, I met a woman who seemed more alive than anyone I had ever seen. Calm voice, peaceful eyes, a smile that felt like warm water. She told me she was a guide, someone who helped people connect with themselves. I didn't know then that she wasn't guiding people toward light. She was guiding them toward her own shadows. I admired her, trusted her, and slowly, without realizing it, I stepped into a world where silence spoke louder than words, and intuition was a leash. People imagine witches as women who chant, burn herbs, or dance in the forest. But the modern ones, they blend in. They speak gently, listen deeply, and study you like a map. Their power isn't in rituals. It's in noticing the tiny cracks in your soul. Cracks you didn't even know were there. Before they influence, before they bind, before they control, they observe. My mentor, let's call her Aisha, never asked direct questions. Direct questions alarm people. She used different tools. Tools masked as concern, curiosity, or conversation. The first thing she ever said to me was, "You blink differently when someone mentions your family." I laughed. But inside, something opened. Attention is the first spell. She noticed patterns. How I hesitated before answering. How my voice dropped when I felt unsafe. How I inhaled sharply when someone mentioned God. Every response became an invisible thread she tied to me. One evening, she studied me for a long time before saying, "Do you know your silence has 3 layers?" I didn't know what she meant, but she explained. The first silence is what you show the world. The second is where you hide your pain. And the third is where someone else can enter. At the time, I thought she meant healing. I didn't know she meant access. The deeper I went into her world, the more I realized she wasn't interested in helping me. She was interested in reading me, like someone preparing a ritual. Preparing a vessel, she taught me to meditate with my eyes open, to listen to the sound behind the sound, to write down every dream before my feet touched the ground. She said dreams were windows, but she never told me windows open both ways. Soon I began seeing people differently too. I could sense who carried guilt, who carried grief, who carried hidden desire. It felt like a gift. But every gift from darkness comes with a chain. Weeks later, she introduced me to something she called soul tracing. Not magic, not spells. Just observing a person's patterns until you could predict their reactions before they spoke. But it wasn't harmless. It was spiritual surveillance. Isha would sit across from someone, smile warmly, and say, "You breathe differently when you lie." And instantly the person would crumble. She used empathy as a knife. Soft, sharp, silent. I watched her break people, not with anger, but with gentleness. And that's the most dangerous kind of control, the kind wrapped in kindness. Then came the night everything changed. A women's gathering. Soft lights, warm tea, soft music. It looked safe, but the air felt wired, almost electric. Isha asked everyone to speak from their wounds, saying pain carries truth. One by one, women talked about heartbreak, fear, betrayal. Their voices trembled, their tears fell, and the room grew heavier. Heavier, as if something unseen was feeding on the air. I didn't understand it then, but pain is currency in the spiritual realm. And that night, everyone spent more than they realized. By the time it was my turn to speak, my throat tightened. I felt like someone unseen was waiting for me to open a door. I didn't know that once a door opens, it never closes the same way again. That night was when I first felt something enter my life. Quietly, softly, like a thought that wasn't mine, like a shadow that didn't belong to me. And from that moment, my nights were never silent again. The first time I heard the whisper, I thought it was my imagination. My room was dark, the curtains barely moving, and I was lying awake long after midnight. But the voice felt close. Too close. It didn't call my name. It didn't scare me. It simply asked, "Why do you never finish your sentences?" My heart stopped. It was the same observation Aisha once made. The same pattern she pointed out months ago. I sat up, shaken, telling myself it was just anxiety. But deep inside, I knew this wasn't my thought. The voice wasn't coming from me. It was coming to me. Over the next few nights, the whispering grew clearer. Not constant, not loud. Just targeted, precise, like someone had memorized my soul's weak spots and was knocking on them gently. That's when I realized soul tracing wasn't just observation. It was invitation. You don't observe someone that deeply unless you plan to enter. Meanwhile, Isha's interest in me changed. She wasn't warm anymore. She was watchful, studying me like someone waiting for a seed to sprout. She would say strange things like, "You've become easier to reach," or, "Your dreams are speaking louder now." I never told her about the whispers. I never told anyone. But every time she looked at me, I felt like she already knew. One evening she invited me to her home. Her place was filled with soft lights, hanging fabrics, murmuring wind chimes. Peaceful to the eyes, yet unsettling to the spirit. She asked me to sit. Then she gave me a small object, a smooth black stone, warm to the touch, as if someone had been holding it tightly before me. "Keep this near your bed," she said. "It will help you sleep." When I asked what it was, she smiled gently. A memory holder. Something in me resisted, not because of fear, but because it felt like accepting something I could never return. So I lied. I told her I would keep it. But when I went home, I left the stone in my bag, far from my pillow. That night, the whispers grew louder, almost frustrated, like something was trying to find me and failing. It asked, "Why did you lock your window? Why are you afraid of being seen? Why are you hiding your thoughts?" These weren't questions from a stranger. These were echoes of things Aisha once told me during sessions, observations she used to open my mind. Now they were being used to enter it. By the fourth night, something changed. I had a dream, so vivid it didn't feel like a dream at all. I was standing in a room I didn't recognize. Circular, dim, walls moving like shadows breathing, and in the center, a chair. On it, the black stone she gave me, except now it pulsed, like a heartbeat, like something inside it was alive. As I reached toward it, a voice behind me whispered, "You must trust us." You opened the door. Let us complete what we started. I turned, but there was no one, only the sound of slow breathing, right next to my ear. When I woke up, I couldn't move for a few seconds, as if something had sat on my chest, watching, waiting. The next morning I found the stone on my bedside table, even though I had left it zipped inside my bag. That's when reality hit me. This wasn't psychological. This wasn't imagination. This wasn't anxiety. Something had followed me home. And it wasn't waiting for permission anymore. I decided to confront Isha, not out of courage, but desperation. When I saw her during the next gathering, she didn't greet me with warmth. She just looked at me, with a strange mixture of disappointment and amusement. "You resisted," she said. "You lingered too long at the doorway but refused to step in." I tried to speak, but my throat tightened, the same way it had the night I first felt the presence enter. She walked closer, her voice almost affectionate. "You were meant to be more than a student. But fear makes people unpredictable." Something about her tone. It wasn't angry. It was possessive, as if my soul was a project she had invested in. I finally asked the question that had been burning inside me. "What did you do to me?" She laughed softly. "We don't do anything. We reveal. You opened yourself. We only entered." Before I could react, she added, "And once something enters your life, it doesn't leave empty-handed." Those words haunted me for days. Because deep down, I felt something inside me shifting. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, I began waking up exhausted, as if I had spent the whole night running. I forgot simple things. I felt watched, even in crowded places. My reflection in mirrors felt slightly delayed, as if the person staring back wasn't moving with me. I wasn't losing my mind. I was losing myself. And the worst part? Isha acted like she was waiting for me to break, waiting for the moment I would return to her. "Crawl back!" Ask for help. Because dependence is the final chain. But something inside me refused. Something small, something stubborn, something she hadn't managed to reach yet. A voice, my own this time, whispered, "You need to escape." But escape isn't easy when the prison follows you everywhere. Escape sounds simple when danger is physical. You run, you hide, you lock the door. But how do you escape something that lives inside your thoughts? Something that speaks in your own voice? Something that knows your fears better than you do? For weeks I carried that question like a weight. The presence in my room grew bolder, the dreams grew darker, and I felt pieces of myself slipping away, like someone was slowly rewriting me from the inside. I avoided Isha, avoided gatherings, avoided anything that connected me to that world. But avoidance doesn't break spiritual ties. It only delays them. One night, around the same hour the whispers always came, my room suddenly felt wrong. The air thickened like someone invisible had stepped inside. My breath grew shallow, and before I could reach for the light, I heard it. Not a whisper this time, but a slow exhale right behind me. Then a voice, colder than any dream. "You left the doorway open." My body froze. I wanted to scream, but my throat locked. A pressure rolled across my chest, not heavy but intentional, as if something was testing how tightly it could hold me. My mind raced. I tried to pray, but every spiritual word I knew vanished, gone, as if something erased them before they reached my tongue. I realized then, it wasn't just observing me anymore. It wanted control. The room dimmed. The shadows on my walls stretched unnaturally long, and my thoughts felt like they were being pushed aside by something foreign, something that wasn't me. Images flashed behind my eyes. The black stone, the breathing walls, Isha's disappointed smile. Then the presence spoke again, this time inside my mind, not outside. "Let us deepen the bond. Stop resisting." And for a moment, I almost listened, not because I wanted to, but because my exhaustion felt heavier than my will. Darkness doesn't always overpower you with force. Sometimes it waits until you're too tired to care. My body trembled. Tears blurred my vision, and deep inside me a final thought emerged. This is how people lose themselves. In that breaking moment, something unexpected happened. Not dramatic, not loud, just a faint memory. A childhood memory of sitting beside my grandmother, while she prayed softly under her breath. Her voice was gentle, steady, unafraid. I hadn't thought about her in years, but suddenly her presence filled my mind. Not an image, not a vision, just her voice speaking one simple word. "Call." Not who, not what, just call. My throat loosened, my lips parted, and without planning it, without forcing it, a single name slipped out of me, weak but real. Jesus. The moment the word left my mouth, the room snapped, like a cord had been cut. The pressure vanished, the shadows recoiled, and the presence, the one that had whispered, followed, watched, and waited, pulled back with a violent jerk. It didn't fade. It fled. The air cleared so fast my lungs stung. For the first time in months, the room felt like mine again. I collapsed to the floor, shaking, crying, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. Not because I was afraid, but because I finally understood. Darkness isn't scared of crystals, candles, or chants. It's scared of authority, real authority. The next morning, I walked into the same gathering I'd been avoiding. Isha was there, calm, serene, smiling like nothing had happened. But when she saw me, her expression changed. Not dramatically, just a flicker, like someone noticing a string they once tied had snapped. She approached me slowly. "You look different," she said, as if the words were an accusation, not a compliment. For the first time, I met her gaze without fear. "I closed the door," I whispered. She stiffened, just slightly. Then she spoke in a tone I'd never heard from her. Cold, sharp, stripped of all softness. "You should have stayed open." "I know," I said, "but something answered when you couldn't." She held my stare for a long time, then her smile returned. But it wasn't warm. It wasn't human. It was a smile of someone who had lost a piece of control and didn't know how to accept defeat. That was the last day I ever saw her, but breaking free from her was only the beginning. The real battle was reclaiming the parts of myself I had surrendered without realizing. My confidence, my voice, my discernment, my peace. Healing wasn't instant. It was a slow, painful unraveling of every thread she had tied around my mind. But with every day that passed, my room grew quieter, my dreams grew clearer, my thoughts returned to their original shape, and the shadows stopped stretching toward me. Now I share this story for only one reason. Not to glorify darkness, not to create fear, but to warn you with the truth most people never hear. Not all guidance is guidance. Not all healing is healing. Not all spiritual questions are innocent. Some people study your pain to plant themselves in it. Some people observe your patterns to walk through them. Some people give you comfort so they can take control. And some doors, once opened, invite more than you intended. But the same way darkness enters quietly, light can break it loudly. With one name, one call, one moment of clarity. Because in the end, the battle for your soul is never about power. It's about permission. And the moment you take that permission back, everything changes.